Sadly, I need to open this briefing by announcing that 3 more deaths from COVID-19 were announced today. Our thoughts are with the family and friends. It is always a sobering reminder of the health impact of this pandemic on our community. People are aware of how coronavirus has had a devastating impact on our economy too. Each month of shutdown has been akin to a large recession. And of course, as we all know, and the Department of Health regularly says, there are significant health and well-being consequences of lockdown. The longer we are unable to do business and people are kept away from work, the greater the risk of long-term damage. My message has been that we need to support business to get through the initial phase of lockdown, but that we must now urgently plot a course out of lockdown and get business open again in a safe, staged and sensible manner. So far, we have distributed over 280 million in grants to businesses, and this vital financial support has helped to save many tens of thousands of businesses the length and breadth of Northern Ireland. The 40 million micro-business fund has also opened to applications, and it will provide much needed support to businesses and eligible social enterprises, which have so far been unable to access other regional and national support measures. Over 2,000 applications have already been submitted to the Hardship Fund. In total, over 40,000 businesses in Northern Ireland will have been eligible to apply for support under all of the Northern Ireland COVID-19 grant schemes. Many businesses have also received from UK-wide schemes, and rates relief has also been a significant factor. As well as supporting businesses in the here and now, we must also plan for their future. Yesterday, I presented an economic paper to my executive colleagues, which complements the executive 5-stage plan to come out of lockdown. Charting a course for the economy, our first steps, is the first in a series of publications my department is working on. This document provides detail on the state of the economy and the impact of the economic shock, provides some international context and comparators, and outlines the guiding principles for how we should restart our economy. Decisions taken by the Executive this week demonstrate that as we are now beginning to see an easement of restrictions, as frustrating as it is for many, progress will be gradual and in stages. As we move towards further relaxation, key executive messaging will also focus on 2 themes from now on: stay safe, save lives, and work safe, save lives. I would stress that those who can work at home should continue to do so. Many of our construction and manufacturing businesses have already returned to safe workplaces. Some firms have adapted their working practices, and protocols are being prepared, particularly in the wider manufacturing and food production sectors. The engagement forum chaired by the Labour Relations Agency has also published workplace safety guidance to help employers, employees and the self-employed understand how to work safely during the pandemic. I have recommended a phased return for the retail sector. It has been provisionally agreed to extend Step 1's relaxation of the restrictions on garden centres from the 8th of June to include other non-food retailers, such as new and used car dealerships and large machinery retailers. We also have provisional agreement from the 8th of June to open non-food retail with lower frequency retail activities and larger store areas such as those selling household electrical appliances, mobile phones and furniture stores. This would only apply where outlets have direct street access or direct access within a retail park. The expert scientific advice is that the risk of the virus spreading outdoors is much less significant than indoors. Physical distancing must also be maintained, but people must also use common sense. Businesses will have already been planning for reopening and will have given consideration on how they can restrict how many customers are in a store, how to manage the flow of customers when in the store, and how to keep staff and customers safe when browsing or purchasing something. For this, location is important. Social distancing needs to be manageable in public spaces, outside of stores, not just inside. Store workers may need to assist in maintaining social distancing and encouraging good hygiene practices upon entry and then inside stores. This morning I had a very positive engagement through the Northern Ireland Retail Consortium with some of our leading national retailers. Their desire to return to normal but safe trading as soon as possible is clear. I share this desire. A coordinated approach across the executive will be required to help our businesses get back up and running and workplaces operating safely. Transport will be required for people to get to work, and people will need to feel safe to use it. Schools and childcare arrangements will support the process for getting people back to work. And public spaces, high street car parks and high streets will need to be made as safe as possible. The Department for the Economy is fully committed to working with the lead departments in these areas to ensure the steps we are taking in getting the economy moving again are in lockstep with arrangements for transport, education, childcare and public spaces. If the R rate is controlled, further reopening within the retail sector can be considered by the executive over the next few weeks. At every stage, the department will work with the Minister for Health to ensure the steps being taken fit in with the latest scientific and medical advice. Other papers on our economic recovery will be published by my department in the near future. We will outline how vulnerable but viable businesses will be supported through the next phase of the pandemic. We will examine support for the unemployed to retrain and upskill, and we will state how we plan to deliver on the commitment for a strong, competitive and regionally balanced economy in these challenging times. At every stage, we will work to achieve the buy-in from all sections of society. We must look for consensus in emerging from lockdown, just as we sought it in going into lockdown. Our tourism industry is extremely important and needs our attention. We have set up a tourism recovery working group, and I chair that steering group. As we begin to emerge from the shadow of COVID-19, we will begin to see our tourism and hospitality businesses open up again. This too will represent an important step on the road to eventual and much needed normality. The executive agreed yesterday that hotels can now take advance bookings in preparation for when they can accept guests. I understand the need for an indicative date on when they can open. I understand the need for businesses to bring staff back and train them prior to opening. I have raised my concerns that our hotels are at a disadvantage compared to competitors in the Republic of Ireland and Great Britain who have already started to take bookings. Ministers have agreed to give this matter further consideration and provide an update early next week. This, along with the position of caravan sites, bed and breakfasts and hospitality in general, are of the utmost concern. Last week I spoke with the Republic's Minister for Transport and Tourism and Sport, Shane Ross. Yesterday I spoke with airlines, tour organisers and travel agents from the US on what their customers are saying about when they would feel safe to begin international travel again and what they expect in terms of safety precautions when they get here. We discussed the need to develop a new tourism plan that takes account of marketplace realities and which considers the different scenarios in which we are operating. As an executive, we will be working hard to manage the recovery. We also rely on the support of the public to behave responsibly and use common sense to manage the safety of themselves and others around them. We also rely on support of arm's length bodies to government. And I would like to invite the Chief Executive of Invest Northern Ireland, Kevin Holland, to make some remarks on what Invest has and will be providing to businesses across Northern Ireland as we rebuild and regrow our local economy.
Okay, good afternoon, and thank you, Minister, for the chance to talk today about early business recovery. So clearly, while COVID-19 is first a health and society issue requiring immediate measures to protect people, it's also created a significant economic challenge, both locally and all around the world. All businesses are impacted, regardless of size and sector, as are many employees. Consumer demand, industrial demand have been significantly reduced, and many businesses have lost key markets as business output declines along with them. Our team at Invest Northern Ireland have been actively engaged to inform and support businesses during this fast-paced period. We have seen that many Northern Ireland businesses have shown great agility, creativity and resilience. For example, repurposing to meet the needs of PPE for our health sector. For example, modifying operations to enable fast home working, or going digital to open up new online novel channels to reach new markets. Going forward though, social distancing, high levels of remote working, and then an even greater use of technology will all change the world of work and change the way we work. Some businesses will emerge relatively unchanged, some will be a lot stronger, others will have a short-term downturn, and unfortunately, some may not recover to the same extent they were at the start. So what to do? We've committed recently 1,800 hours of interviews, live discussions with businesses to help provide evidence for the staged economic recovery plan, laying out how business and the economy together can help return to work, reset businesses in the light of the new environment, and start rebounding towards a recovery pathway. And already we see some good signs. Locally at its peak, over 200,000 people have been on furlough in Northern Ireland. Encouragingly though, some of our client companies are indicating an intention to return already 25% of these furloughed workforce back to work. First priority, of course, will be to ensure a safe return to work with necessary social distancing, protective measures, and to use this to safeguard these jobs and incomes long term. Then let's build from the agility, creativity and resilience that Northern Ireland business has really shown in the face of this crisis and move quickly to compete in what's going to be undoubtedly a more demanding global business environment. I think Northern Ireland is small enough, nimble enough to move faster to competitive recovery than many other places around the world. We should seek out opportunities from this time of change, whether that's through enhanced digital solutions, and really Northern Ireland has great strength in this area, looking to high-value sectors and markets, the ones which will be different in the future world, and place Northern Ireland in the centre of robust, resilient global supply chains, as well as supporting companies with a higher growth potential. So I can assure you that Northern Ireland resilience has not gone unnoticed globally, and it certainly further increases our attractiveness as an investment location. So building then this phased, staged recovery plan and supporting our economy to return, to reset and rebound, this requires real partnership, real collaboration, and I think fundamentally based on really good business insight. For Invest Northern Ireland, we really look forward to helping make the Northern Ireland coming out of COVID-19 even stronger for businesses than the one that went in. Thank you.
Afternoon to you both. Jane McCormack here from BBC News. Just first of all, we know that the Chancellor is due to make an announcement on the changes to the furlough scheme pretty shortly in terms of asking workforces to actually help pay some of their companies' wages. Given that the economic picture here is already pretty bleak, some companies are barely holding up as it is this the right call by the Treasury? That's to both of you. And second of all, to Minister Dodds, you talked about hotels there and the lack of a date for reopening. Do you concede that it was perhaps wrong for the Executive not to provide a reopening date yesterday and to leave them in limbo?
Well, Jane, thank you for the questions. If I can come in first, and then, of course, Kevin can follow up on the potential impact of any announcement on the furloughing scheme. Over the past number of weeks, I have spoken extensively to businesses throughout Northern Ireland. In fact, I was doing that with businesses in East Belfast just before I came down to the press conference. And all indicated how absolutely essential the furlough scheme had been in creating a situation where their business could continue. Really is an unprecedented intervention in the economy. My understanding is that the government may consider changes to this, and this may be around a contribution of around 20% for employers to contribute in future. This would be actually incredibly difficult for some employers, particularly employers in the hospitality and retail sectors, which have now been closed for 3 months, and particularly for hospitality and the broader tourism sector, where it is uncertain whether they will get back to full operations for a number of months yet to come. So I have been urging the Chancellor to consider very wisely what he is going to do, and whether or not he needs to look at the subsectors within the scheme to see if there is further help that he can give. One of the other issues that constantly comes to me about the furloughing scheme is the lack of flexibility. So some firms are saying, for example, that they could do with the expertise of one of their employees for 2 days a week, but they'd really like the furloughing to continue for the 3. And again, in my calls with BEIS in London this week, I have been advocating a greater flexibility to the scheme. And I think that that's important. It's no secret that I have had extensive contacts with the hotel and hospitality and tourism sectors. Many of our hotels feel that they have been disadvantaged by not having an indicative timetable to start taking bookings again, particularly when we compare that to the situation in the Republic of Ireland and in the rest of Great Britain. I have brought this to the Executive. We had a very good discussion on this on Thursday, and I will be bringing further papers to the Executive at the start of the week, where I hope that further progress can be made. Can I say as well that it isn't just for the hotel industry? I think that there are many people with touring caravan sites, bed and breakfast accommodation, who are in exactly the same position. Kevin?
Yeah, well, I would add one thing is that first, businesses and employees clearly welcomed the furlough scheme in the beginning and welcomed the extension till October. I think that we're entering a slightly different phase now, and the need now is for something which is, more flexible and more tailored to the economic recovery pathway. So first, emergency measures are the same for everyone. I think now it will be a different perspective going forward. So we look forward to seeing what the Chancellor may announce this afternoon.
Good afternoon to you both. Vicky Hawthorne from UTV. Minister, if I could ask you, first of all, it's a variation on a theme. Basically, are you saying, just to be clear, that there will be a date for hoteliers next week? And are you now, as an executive, starting to consider giving dates for other businesses going forward? Because any business looking at your document today will be left with more answers or more questions than answers, because there are no dates for any business really going forward. And also, Minister, can I ask you just for your response in terms of the redundancies being announced at the airport today, Belfast International Airport? How worried are you that this is just the beginning of a real impact on Northern Ireland's airports and connectivity?
Thank you, Vicky, for the question. At the start of our considerations about how we come out of lockdown, I think that the Executive took the very wise, reasonable and correct decision to be led by the scientific and medical advice as to how we ease ourselves out of this situation. I talk to many businesses and they all tell me that actually to rush too far ahead and then have to step back would be absolutely devastating for them. Businesses want to open up safely and in a structured way. And I haven't found businesses who have told me otherwise in the many, many contacts that I've had with them. And I think that that is important to remember. I think that an indicative timetable is useful for some sectors, and the hotel sector is one of those sectors. And as I say, we have had very good discussions at the executive on the matter. We will return to the matter next week, and I do not want our industry to be at a competitive disadvantage to other industries in the British Isles. I spoke this week to American tour operators who bring visitors into Northern Ireland, and they are indicating that it will be next year before really we will resume that to a meaningful extent. So therefore we will be relying on the home and the domestic market, and it's important that our hotels are placed in the proper context within that market. In terms of the job losses at Belfast International, it is always regrettable when there are job losses in any sphere whatsoever, and I fear that the impact on our economy will be very great indeed. In terms of connectivity, you know that we have been operating with only a fraction of the connectivity that we've had. I understand that EasyJet and Jet2 are restarting operations from Belfast International Airport. And of course, I am in constant contact with the Department of Transport to try and sustain our airports through a time of very great crisis. But restoring connectivity and growing the economy and restarting the economy again go hand in hand.
Good afternoon to you both. Freya Clements from the Irish Times. To come back to you, if I may, to the question of dates, and I wonder if you could just expand a little bit more on the work that's being done. You mentioned there discussions with the government in the Republic. Just in terms of if you could expand a bit more about what's being done to streamline work around dates for reopenings on both sides of the border and also with counterparts in the UK, because this issue where we have these disparities and these advantages on one side, disadvantages on the other, you know, they're just going to keep happening, aren't they?
Well, this week actually I talked to my counterpart Shane Ross, and we discussed a range of areas where we can cooperate and where things can be done to try to maximise the market that will be available to us for the rest of this season. So that conversation is ongoing. I also this week talked to my counterparts in England, Scotland and Wales about rebuilding the tourism industry in the United Kingdom. We talked about how the customer views the tourism market, the things that are necessary to ensure that customers have confidence in the product and have confidence in the steps taken to ensure their safety. And there's a lot of work being done across the United Kingdom to try to standardise that and make sure that we have a really good product that people are confident about. And I know that our hotels are spending a lot of time, a lot of effort and a lot of thought as to how they ensure customers feel secure and confident in returning to this particular sector. So much work is going on right across the British Isles, and we will continue to do that, Freya, because that is of the utmost importance. I spoke this week also to Aer Lingus about the connectivity between the island of Ireland and the North American market. They indicated that this was literally running at about 5% of where it had been, and that the work and effort that would be required to rebuild that connectivity again. Happily, we also spoke to North American tour operators who said that there is still an absolute pressing excitement about visiting us, and virtually all of their tours that had been booked for this year were rebooked for 2021. So it's about confidence and about ensuring that we get ahead in planning for recovery.
Hello, it's Michael McHugh from the Press Association. Good afternoon to you both. I had the briefest of skims through your document there, Minister. Maybe you could explain for me, there was some reference to a 25 to 30% fall in output as a result of all this. To a non-economist, could you explain what that looks like in terms of jobs, in terms of day-to-day life in Northern Ireland? And following on from that, do you think that we will see a V-shaped recovery, or will it be longer lasting, the depression?
Well, Michael, thank you for the question. I think that we are absolutely hoping for the quickest recovery that's possible. So I've been asked by press, will that be a V-shaped recovery, a U-shaped recovery, an L-shaped recovery? I hope it's the quickest one that we can get, and we will be taking steps to try to ensure that and support the economy going forward. Obviously, since industry has been severely curtailed and not operating, there is a huge slump in output, and there is also that slump in demand. We need to take the steps to try to recover the economy, and unfortunately, many firms are starting to get back up and running. Many firms are working out how they can do this safely, working with their partners in the trade unions in order to do this for their employees. And that's all very, very valuable, but I don't think that we should shy away from the fact that this has been a very, very difficult period, and it will be a long, hard road to recovery. I am happy to hand over to Kevin. I'm sure he has other words to say on this.
I was just going to make one comment, is that at the beginning of a lockdown or a pause in a business, you can actually still commercialise and sell, often for a few weeks or even a month or nearly, with the stock and the finished products you've already made in the past. But then you get into a deeper hole where once you're not making anymore, you're not able to push anything out. And I think we're in that period for many of the businesses. And that's why it's so reassuring to see some of the businesses starting to go back and manufacture again, so that you can start being able to supply what will be the early shoots of demand that we're starting to see around the world.